Welcome to B-Flow Sessions, the podcast where we help you find and stay in the flow on the water and in life. I'm your host, Brad Burton. Join me as I sit down with paddlers, athletes, and adventurers who are all seeking the flow. B-Flow Sessions is brought to you by our friends at Pucon Kayak Retreat. Are you dreaming of a Chilean whitewater escape this winter? Picture turquoise rapids, warm sunny days, and world-class rivers for every skill level, all based out of a riverside retreat built by paddlers for paddlers. If that sounds like your kind of winter, then Pecan Kayak Retreat is the place. To learn more or to book your dream kayak trip, reach out to me directly at bflowkayak@gmail.com and I'll help you get. B-Flow Sessions is powered by Dagger Kayaks. Wherever there's water, Dagger Kayaks will help you find your flow. Team-tested, paddler-proven designs for all paddlers and all water. And thanks to our partners at Sawyer Paddles, Stohlquist PFDs, and Level 6 Gear for keeping us in the flow. Welcome to the next episode of B-Flow Sessions. This is your host, Brad Burton, and I am joined by one of my oldest friends in kayaking, a guy that, I really looked up to, and then, we became colleagues and paddled together a lot. I met him for the first time on the Upper Ocoee, and I was kind of starstruck the first time I met him, and then to get chance to get to then travel with him in a Subaru a little bit and compete and hang out, and then he was in my instructional video too. But one of the legends of whitewater kayaking, Keith Liles. Keith, man, thanks
I
for
wouldn't
being
go
on
that
B-Flow
far.
Sessions.
I wouldn't go that far. I feel like you got the minor leagues on today, but
I don't think so. And what's your like Instagram handle? Like I used to be cool or something like that.
Yeah, I used to be cool, K-Lyles. Got some underscores in there
Yeah,
somewhere. Yeah.
and I always tell people it's better to be a has been than a never was.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
But Keith, again, thanks for being on B-Flow Sessions. So tell us, how did you find your flow in kayaking?
Man, it's weird how I got into the sport. I started in the sport just because my parents moved to the mountains. I say mountains, but they moved up to Alabama and kind of started rafting on the Ocoee. But I grew up surfing. So I grew up in Orlando, Florida, and that was my thing all the way up until high school. And it when I moved away from there, it was like, man, what am I going to do now? Like there's bought a skateboard for a little while. Did that for a while. Realized concrete hurts real bad, and went found kayaking kind of on accident. I went for an EMT class up at the Nantahala, put on by Solo, and went up there. It was like a month and a half long class,
Wow.
and it was right there on the river. And my dad had bought me a dancer for my graduation present. Like that's when I graduated in '91, and everybody, all my friends were getting cars, and I got a dancer, and I was like, man, what am I going to do with this? And then I went for that kayaking class or that wilderness EMT class. And I was like, you know what? And I called my dad and said, hey, if you guys are coming up here, will you bring that dancer? And they brought the dancer up, and I started kayaking. And that was the first couple of trips I took down a river, like on my own in a kayak. And I met some people at that class that were raft guides on the Ocoee, and they're like, "Man, you gotta come up here and do this." And I've been looking for something similar to do. It's kind of like hadn't ever since I'd stopped surfing and moved away. I hadn't found anything else that I truly loved and
Right.
enjoyed. And went up and started guiding rafts on the Ocoee River, working for High Country Adventures.
Okay.
And they're gone now. They
Right.
yeah, just recently, I believe. But worked for them for a while and started kayaking, and just being up there around water allows you to be on the water all the
Mhm.
time. So
Right.
we would do rafting trips and then take the boats up there and be on the water up there. So just that accessibility really allowed my skill level to increase
Mhm.
at a kind of a rapid rate. I remember I was paddling one day with we were running. What creek was that? Um, Saudi Creek here in Big Saudi near Chattanooga, and we were testing boats. We were actually designing the Dagger Gradient at the time. So we had a whole bunch of kayaks out there, and we were testing them. And I remember I was with Tom DeQueer, and I said, "Hey man, you taught me how to roll." And he's like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah." It was like Grace Under Pressure. I watched that thing like 9 times, rolled my first time. And he stopped and shrugged his shoulders. He looked at me. He's like, "You've only been paddling that long?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude." It was just because I had access to the water and I was able to get out
Right.
there and get on the water so much. Baffled Tommy that I that I'd learned to roll through his video because it hadn't been out for all that long. I mean, it had been out for a little while, but not very long.
Right.
Testament to that video though, if you ever can dig it up, because it's a hokey video, but man, it can teach you to roll.
For sure. For sure. So what years were that? That was like maybe like 93, 94.
So I started raft guiding in '93. Trying to think of when I really got started kayaking. I worked for High Country for 2 years, so that would put me at 95. And then in 96, I want to say, or 95, I went to Sunburst and I started guiding rafts at Sunburst. And all of those folks were kayakers, every single one of them, almost. And Mark Lyle had been the manager there. He's no longer the manager, but he still lived on the outpost and still was around. So I paddled with him almost every day. Uh, and I still remember they had this little, they called it the cook shack, and it was a little building down there that used to be the kitchen for all the guides, and then Mark moved in, and it was then Mark's house. And I remember being invited down to the cook shack one time, and he talked to me about joining Team Dagger, and I was like, man, I made it. It's like every
Exactly.
single one, I made it. And it was like my life this is great. This is all I've ever wanted. And then you discover, there's a lot more that you want. Once you get that close to kayaking like that, you keep wanting more.
But and I was the same way. Like, Chris Spilius and Chris Hipgrave were kind of my connections in at Dagger, and through Chris Hipgrave is how I first met you. But there was a little stint there from like the early to mid 90s through the early 2000s where, certainly Wavesport and, Piranha, they had their crew, but, the Team Dagger folks, like it was like a badge of honor. I mean, you just said Team D and people knew what you meant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And props to the wave sport guys, because we looked at those guys like, man, they're getting a lot of support from their company, and they're really pushing them. Chan did a great job of pushing his athletes out there, and we were able to take that back to Dagger and say, look at they're pushing videos out, they're doing all this stuff, and they're really promoting their team. And then Dagger started doing the same for us, and it really helped us out. And man, I don't. I've been a little bit removed from it lately, so as far as the professional scene, obviously, but I still watch follow all the same people on Facebook that everybody else does, and still see the videos that what folks are doing now. But I really do feel like, man, we had it in the late '90s. That
It
was
was a
like the
sweet spot,
golden
wasn't
era.
it?
Yeah, it was like and they were just all the teams were out there just hitting. It seemed like a golden era,
It
and,
really
and I don't know if
was.
it may still be that way, but it really doesn't seem like it. Like it
No.
seems like it's all digital now, and that we were just these roving bands of kayakers going from town to town, doing all these events, then hitting all the creeks in the area and everything. It was a good time. It was a
It
really good time.
was, yeah. I mean, I think like it was probably like 97 to 2005, I think was that sweet
Yeah,
spot of like the pro tour and the pro kayaker for whatever that meant. I mean, there was a couple people who were sustaining their lifestyle. Most of us were just happy to have a tuna fish sandwich and a gas card and some free boats and a Subaru, and we were good to go.
yeah, yeah. It's like you get to stay in a hotel like once a month,
Exactly.
like, that
Yeah.
that was kind of cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember. They we had a partnership with Nike at the time. It was Nike All Conditions Gear, which, yeah, there it is right there. Which ACG doesn't exist anymore, but they we went out there to Portland and kind of met all the folks out there, and um, it I remember they took us down to do some photo shoots for some of their stuff, for their point of purchase stuff, like stuff they were going to have in the stores and things like that. and they had a bunch of their other athletes there. And I remember Barrett Christie, the snowboarder, X Games snowboarder, she was there, and she was like, "Man, you guys are like the rock stars of Salt Lake now. Like when you go out there for outdoor retailer shows, like kayakers are the rock stars out there right now."
Yeah.
And he's like, like, yep. And that was the late '90s. Like
Yeah, exactly.
snowboarders were looking up to us. Like,
Well, not only that, but you were in a video game.
I was. You can buy that video game on Amazon, I think, for like 98 cents right now.
Well, tell us about that.
So you do have to have Windows 98 to play it. I've only seen it played one time
Uh,
recently, but it's kind of a running joke in like my life right now. Like, hey, do you guys know this guy was in a video game? And I have to keep the screensaver like pulled up on my phone. Be like, yeah, look right here. But at least once a month that comes up. But I tell them, hey, it was an Activision video game. We kind of led the way for Call of Duty.
okay. Yeah. But yeah,
One for us.
it was like one of those. I mean, I've seen some of them in arcades where you're just kind of going down the rivers and you got to hit your buttons to kind of navigate through. But you were the model for the kayaker, right?
Yeah, well, so I was on the cover,
Okay.
and it was like me, Mark Lyle, and somebody else was on the cover of it, and then each one of us had our little page, that like I was this totally jacked dude with a goatee, like in this like Minecraft looking block frame. It's late '90s. It was
Yeah.
technology was different, but it was
That's
super cool. But, not many people can say they were in a video game.
not many people can say they're in a video game for sure. Now today with GoPros, everybody can be in a kayaking video, but not
Yeah.
everybody can be in a video game.
Yep.
So other than like Mark Lyle, you mentioned Tom DeQueer. Who are some of your other flow guides, like your first mentors in kayaking?
Oh man, as far as the guys that I look up to a lot, and it's crazy because I was paddling with the people that I really looked up to, people that I was out guiding rafts and I'd see them paddle by. I was like, oh man, that's so and so. And then next thing you know, you're paddling with them. Uh, Pablo Perez was a huge one. Uh, like being out with him and paddling with him. Uh, Gosh, I remember there was a day leading up into the I want to say it was the Worlds in '96 or '97, but it was up at the Ottawa River.
Hmm.
There was a day it was me and Ken Whiting, Nicole, and Karen Mann, the four of us out there, and it was like a week before everybody else started getting in, and Ken hadn't won the world championships yet, but I was like, man, this guy is amazing. Like,
Hmm.
and I'd met him several times. It was my first time meeting Canadians, and I'd met him at the Potomac at the Great Falls race. I was like, man, these guys are the nicest guys in the world.
Yeah, they are.
And just immediately like hit it off with them and hung out and then paddling up there with them those days. And I learned so much because the right side hole up the Ottawa it was in perfect, and we had it perfect for days on days, and I learned so much. And then the water level changed, and the event shifted to the left side hole. It was totally different. But Pablo Perez, Ken Whiting, Spee, like watching him paddle. There all these guys, and obviously EJ,
Sure.
watching those guys and being able to paddle those guys and compete against those guys. One of the dudes, and if you see this, Clay Wright was, for some reason, I paddled like straight garbage around Clay every time I paddled with Clay. And we would run creeks together, and I would come out bruised and beaten out of every those times. And it was like, why does Clay make me nervous? Like, why is paddling with this guy make me nervous? But it did. It is like that guy was so freaking smooth and been around forever. Everybody knew who he was, and I'm sitting there competing. I'm beating him in competitions, and still the guy makes me super nervous every time I paddled with him.
Right.
So don't let it go to your head though if you see that.
I'll make sure to tag Clay in that segment.
Yeah, for sure.
So, how many years did you make the U.S. national team?
Just once, just once.
97.
I was, yeah, in 1999 actually.
Okay, 99. Okay.
Yeah, '99. I made the team. I was. I should have made it in '97 when Pablo made it.
Hmm.
I was. I kind of struggled with this. Now, I'll be honest. I was terrified of that hole in Burns, Colorado. it would beat the crap out of you. You had to roll fast, and there was some ledges you would go over at the bottom,
Ugh.
and you were in elevation, so you just it was awful. And I remember like the ride that Pablo made the U.S. team, he swam.
I remember
Like
hearing that story.
yeah,
Yeah.
he got beat down. Threw ins all day long. I mean, he wasn't a beat down while he was paddling, but then his ride was over and it turned into a beat down. Like they blew the whistle. And he's like, I'm trying to get out. Like, and he was just getting hammered. And then he flipped and rolled over some rocks and then swam. And like he knew he'd made the team though. And he just got up and he was like super stoked. And I should have made the team at that one, but I was terrified. I was scared of that hole. But then made the team in '99. I didn't realize it was the national championships. Like for some reason, I didn't pay attention to that part. I ended up getting second, and it was because I knew I'd made the team, and I no longer cared about how. I was like, I wanted to be top four, and I was like, I knew I was in the top four, and I was just out there having fun after that. And
Where were
I
team
was like,
pros
man,
at that year?
Rock Island.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it was not really my home spot, but I had been there a bunch. Man, I remember going out that day, and it is sometimes you just have that feeling like sometimes you're just having the best day of your life on the water, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you're having a great time. Other times you're nervous. Sometimes it's like, man, everything's going to go my way. And I remember being underneath the waterfall, and everybody's kind of getting ready and all like the heat's out there. And I remember verbatim, I looked at those guys and I said, I don't know. I was like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but I'm about to go to New Zealand.
Yes.
And it was like, and for some reason, it just felt like, man, this is my day right here. And the sun was shining. You're sitting under that waterfall, and it was like it was everything was there. And it was one of the best days of my life. And same thing, I made the team and I swam.
Oh,
Like,
geez.
yeah, threw my paddle. I was like, yeah, because I had a great ride, and then couldn't
Missed the
handle
handle.
swim.
Was
But then
that
my boat
in?
came around, everything collected. I got back in the eddy, went back out, and I did my other runs.
That's awesome. Were you in a medieval still, or was that centrifuge prototype?
That was, I think that was a medieval. I think it was a
Okay.
medieval. Um, it could have been a centrifuge, but I think it was a medieval.
I think we
Uh,
got the centrifuges that winter,
yeah,
like
probably,
99,
probably.
2000, because I took one to Chile that winter.
Yeah, I think it was a medieval because I remember doing two back to back loops at one of the last rides, and I was like, man, that boat. First of all, it's hard to loop at Rock Island. Second of all, that boat was hard to loop,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Hard to loop a full slice.
but I did it. I don't know.
Of course, we didn't
I
call them full
remember
slices back then. We just called them
they were
playboats.
boats.
And they're
They
just
were
playboats.
boats.
And we creaked in playboats.
We did.
It's just like, yeah. I got picture me in a medieval on the Cascades.
Yeah. I remember I ran Suck Creek in a vertigo
Yeah.
one time. Like it was by myself at high water, and I took off the water. I was like, "That this is a dumb thing to do." So,
You
but
know, it's funny the way the Vertigo was designed, and then a little known boat that Dagger made that was probably its biggest flop. Both those, well, the next one I'm about to talk about is the RX,
the FX,
the FX. Excuse me, the RX is like a river running playboat. Yeah, the FX and the Vertigo, even though like for the times they had issues, they kind of were predecessors to
dude,
kind of some of the designs we're seeing today, right? Like with
dude, all of it. Like, so I've got a vertigo out in my garage, or not a vertigo, but an FX out
do
in
you
my
really?
garage right now. I do, I
No.
do. I've kept it because the flames that were on it were my
Yeah,
idea. So
right.
I was
I
like,
remember.
man, that's yeah. What's really not known about that is those flames cost so much money to
Did
make in
they?
that mold. Like it made that mold so expensive. Dagger lost so much money on that boat
Yeah, yeah,
because
and you were a big like instrument in designing that boat, and I didn't mean like let's say flop. Like it had radical design concepts. It just didn't do very well, from sales
no,
points.
it flopped. It did flop, but they sort of realized that it was like, hey, this is going to be like our statement in the market right now.
Yeah,
If it sells, it sells. Cool. If it doesn't, we're telling people that we're out here trying to innovate and push push the sport forward. It had the little volume pods that you could attach to it. They were sort of a miss. Didn't really work out that well. But when they if you just took those off, which I don't even know where those are, I don't like I've long since lost those things. But the boat itself was actually super fun to paddle. And if you look at it now with the way boats are today,
Hmm.
and the way that like it's just a few tweaks, and
Yes,
it would have rivaled everything that these dudes are using today.
totally
Like it
agree.
just yeah
I used that thing on for the 2003 team trials on the Ottawa, and I don't know if you remember that event. It was one of those. It was two-part events. We had part of it up at like McCoy's, and then part of it at Garb, and you had to like qualify in both spots.
yeah
And I was sitting in like top seven after my first ride at Garb because I threw the biggest air screw and followed it up with another air blunt in that FX. And
yeah.
Brandon Knapp took a picture of it and made the Dagger catalog that year. But that boat would launch off a wave.
It was good. It was a good boat.
Yeah,
I I haven't paddled it in a while. I had it all set up. I took these two IR back bands, two immersion research back bands that had the ratchets on them, and I mounted two of the ratchets like between my legs, and then two up underneath. And I had these two back bands that would go over my thighs and would ratchet in, so I was locked in like a sea boater, you know.
yeah,
Um, all terribly dangerous, like
right.
so dangerous. But it's still set up that way. I mean, obviously, I don't have to put them on. I can take them out super easy. But man, I could
You
throw
got to
that thing
take that
around.
thing out to the Ocoee one day and paddle it and just see what people
But people
say.
will be like, "Is that the new boat?"
Yeah, oh, for sure they will. Yes,
Dude, so I still have a crazy '88, and I'll paddle that down the Ocoee occasionally, and people are like, "Man, that's like they think it's a new boat," and it's like, dude,
right.
this thing's old.
Yeah. My buddy Pete Gallo, he has a crazy 88 still, and that's like he says it's his favorite boat of all time. That's the only
That's
thing he
super
paddles.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and man, I realized back when I was competing, I was about 155 pounds, 160 pounds, and I stayed in the medium sized boats all the time,
Hmm.
and I was right at this cusp where I probably should have been in the larger boats, because I could throw them around really easy, but I would flush out of the holes super quick,
Yeah.
and had I been in that larger boat, I probably could have been a little bit harder to throw around, but I could have stayed in. I could have been a contender. I could have won so much, you know, just in the wrong boat.
So one of the questions I ask is perfect flow, and it sounds like that day at team trials at Rock Island would definitely classify as a day of perfect flow for you.
It qualifies. It qualifies for sure. I mean, there there are river trips that we took. I remember designing the red line. Actually,
Mm,
uh, there was hardly it was a drought in the southeast, so we had to design the boats kind of the way they hit the market. We would sometimes start designing boats in the fall. In the fall, you know, Dagger at the time and still is was located in the southeast, and water's just not there's just not a lot of water in the fall in the southeast. Um, that fall and winter was just particularly dry. And then all of a sudden, I got a phone call, and we're like, "Hey, uh, we're taking a trip down to Foodalafu, and would you guys like to go?" And Dagger's paying for it. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
yeah.
Yes. And I said, all you got to do is I think I might have had to buy my plane ticket. I'm not sure, but they covered everything else, and
Wow.
it was me, Tommy D, Karen Mann, Mark Lyle, Marco Colella, the Naps, Joe Pulliam, Steve Scarborough, like all these guys, like from the Dagger office all the way down through. It was an amazing trip. Stayed at Spee's place down there.
Oh,
Yeah, we brought Spee a bunch of kayaks. It's just actually kind of a funny story. We took all our boats down. Each person took a boat, and there was a brand new Dagger boat, and we each Dagger gave them to us, and we each took them down there to kind of get the boats down there because they were going to Chris, and we were going to paddle them the whole time we were there. They were going to leave them with Chris, but we had them on on our passports that we came in with these boats. So we're going to have to leave with them, or
uh,
otherwise somebody was going to have to pay taxes. Uh, so there's this one day that we while we were down there, we loaded up. And this is some I don't know. Probably shouldn't say this online. We loaded up Spee's boat with all these old like broken kayaks that were just laying around his resort, and we drove to Argentina, and we like went over there with the intent that we're going to come back in to Chile, and Chris would have all those boats on his, like, we would be able to say that we're leaving the country with the boats, and
Yeah.
then we come back in and Chris would say, no, these are all my boats. So so we were able to take these boats over there, and then the idea was, if they don't let us bring them back in, their old broken kayaks, we'll just leave them. Like,
Right.
we just say, hey, all right, then you guys throw them away then, and we came back in, and it worked. So
Oh,
probably
nice.
shouldn't probably shouldn't admit that we did some fraud there,
Yeah.
but tax fraud, I guess. But so we went down there, and that whole trip down there, that group of us, we paddled on the Foodalafu every day for almost a month. We were at Spee's place for about 2 weeks, and then Joe and Steve and Mark and all those guys had to leave and go back. But I remember me and Marco and Tommy and Karen all stayed, and we stayed for like another 2 weeks.
Wow.
Just kept paddling, Tommy filmed a ton of stuff, and we got a lot of good footage, and I don't know if that footage has ever really seen the light of day on a lot of stuff, but being down there the whole time, like waking up to looking around at those mountains and every
Mhm.
morning, and just kayaking down there every day, is a whole different world, and it, as far as flow goes, like that lifestyle of just,
Yes.
like, it is amazing. Um,
There's a
eating really
rapid on
good
that
lunch.
river that I don't know you know this. There's a rapid on that river called the Magic Carpet Ride, and to
Which one?
me, just it's like in the bridge to bridge section, like right before Cata de Onio. There's just like this wave train. It's called the Magic Carpet Ride, and it may not have been called that when you were there, but I don't know. But my point is, the whole river should just be called the Magic Carpet Ride,
Yeah.
because that when you're on that river, that's just what you. It's like this has got to be the closest thing to heaven that's on earth.
Oh man, so I've got a piece of driftwood, and it's sitting upstairs right now, and my wife is like, what is this? And I was like, this is a piece of driftwood from the bottom of throne room that will go with
Oh,
me everywhere. Like, that will stay with me till the day I die. Like, and it's just a little piece of wood, but I grabbed it, threw it in my boat, and kept it with me, and it's super awesome. Like,
wow. So that was probably the winter of like 96, 97.
Probably. Well, it might have been after that. I'm trying to think of when.
So I was there winter of 99, 2000.
Yeah, yeah. It probably is 97, 98, somewhere.
Okay.
Actually, I'll tell you when it was. Um, it was right after Pablo died, because I remember the flight was completely booked, and Pablo was supposed to go down there with
Mm.
us. Um,
So yeah.
Guys, and there was an open seat next to me on the plane, and that was the only open seat on the entire plane.
Oh,
And I was like, I remember this lady kind of turned and, like, put her feet in that in the seat, and I want to say, get your feet out of Pablo's seat.
right. Yeah, that would have been winter of
Yes,
98 then.
yeah. So it was like the week after that, because I remember he drowned in North Carolina. We went over there. We helped get his boat out and brought his boat back. I had to go to move out of my apartment, where I was, took my stuff back to Alabama to my parents' house, came back to the Ocoee, and then the next morning woke up and drove down to Atlanta, and Marco and Mark Lyle picked me up in Atlanta, and then we drove to Miami, and flew out to no, that, like, so I went down to Miami and went to his funeral,
Yeah.
and then came back. So got his boat, went to North Carolina, got his boat, went down to Miami, went to his funeral, came back, moved out of my apartment, came back, went back to Miami 2 days later, drove back down, and then flew out for Chile that next day. So it was that week that he passed away. Um,
What an
was winter down.
amazing, when I say amazing, I just mean like incredible scale of emotions you must have been on at that time to have one of your best friends pass away, and then being on that plane knowing he should be sitting next to me, but then still having this epic adventure and just incredible trip on the Fuda, knowing that Pablo should have been there with you, but also like the fact that he wasn't, you were doing exactly what he wanted you to do.
Well, and that's a like we got down there and it was all like we were ragged, like truly ragged. Like the trip down there is epic. Like it's a whole adventure in and of itself, you know. So we were run ragged just from the weeks before that and just all the stuff, the emotions, everything going through. And then we get down there, we finally get down there and we get settled, and then we're sitting in the cabin. Spee's staff had this amazing dinner made for us. It's our first night there, and I remember Joe Pulliam said, "Hey, let's take a second, guys. Let's think about why we're here and who's supposed to be with us right now." And
Right.
and it's like we did that whole, like, from that moment on, the whole trip was for him. Like
Yeah.
every bit of it was for him. And like I've never seen people hoop and holler on waves like we did, and everybody cheering each other on. It was a amazing bond that everybody kind of shared that whole time we were down there. So it was a good time, but emotional time for sure.
Sure.
But that was a rough, like, that kind of year and a half span right there. Like I stopped counting. I don't count anymore. Um, I could probably sit down and check it up, but it was more than a dozen, like more than a dozen people that I knew died
Yeah.
kayaking in that time frame. And these were like, I say more than a dozen. It's probably more than a dozen at this point, but at that time it was half a dozen easy.
Yeah.
And these are the best
The
kayakers in the
best, the best.
world.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
best kayakers in the world. A lot of them, like Pablo, for instance, like they weren't drowning in the class 5 stuff. They weren't drowning in the dangerous stuff when you really pay attention, when you're all your senses are fired on. They were drowning in the class 3 in between the class 5s. Like when you kind of turn off for a minute and you just bebop down and you're not really paying attention. It was a tough time back then. It sort of helped evolve how we kind of created the gradient
Mm.
from there on out. Like,
Yeah.
we were designing boats based on, in the fire service, we call them line of duty deaths, right? So we were designing boats based around accidents that had happened, and like, where can we put these attachment points for the ropes? I remember we had that little
Yeah.
recessed area right in the front of the boat where if you're vertically pinned, you can pull that rope on your own and throw it out. Somebody can get it. It that boat was super heavy. It would, but man, it would boof like crazy. Like it,
Yeah.
and I loved that boat. Like, it paddled like a dog. Like, it had no chines. It was round bottom, but it was so forgiving. And you could just throw one little last stroke at the end, and it would boof. But the bow was so heavy that if you kind of did an auto boof on accident, it would fall, and you wouldn't have to worry about landing flat. like we had that rotomolded front wall that was designed that if you pitoned, it would blow out and save your ankles. Like, so like we designed that boat around the way people were getting hurt on the river. So it
Right.
was it was kind of cool.
That is cool.
But little tangent there. Sorry about that.
Let's eddy out and take a quick break. Do you need a break from the cold of a North American winter? Then let's head south to the best whitewater on earth at Pucon Kayak Retreat. Email me at bflowkayak@gmail.com to learn more about how you can take the ultimate paddling adventure in the heart of Chile. Now let's peel out and head downstream. No, no,
Well,
I love that's. I mean, that's what makes the storytelling so great on this podcast, and having people like you on it that have such depth of experience and knowledge, and this is great. Um, what about low flow? So, what about times when, you stepped away from paddling for various reasons, and then also kind of dovetail that into what I call the current, what you're doing now in your life and in paddling or in
man,
whitewater.
I will. And I know this now. I didn't know this then. Like, I kind of understood it a little bit back then, but I know it now. Like, and not everybody may feel this way, but I personally feel this way. There was a ton of pressure. We were not rich by any means. I remember going to the Vail Mountain Games, and being around these mountain bikers and snowboarders and all these different athletes from that were kind of making it, right. So like
Hmm.
uh they were getting sponsorship deals of $100,000. I think my largest sponsorship deal that I ever had was around $10,000 to $15,000 if you counted the gas card that came with it. So it uh, but I got a free car. I got a brand new Subaru Outback that I drove around every year. So like that's something. It obviously counts. But it was like we were not making it, like we were kind of struggling to survive, some of us out there, and that pressure to perform, that pressure to like it's a kayaking competition, right? Like it's just some buddies out there throwing ends in a hole that maybe 50 people are watching and 40 of them are in the event themselves, right? Like so
Yeah.
at the time it was like that's what we're at, but there was so much pressure involved with it. And like I said, I realize it now. I didn't I like that was it was toxic to use a modern term. It's like that
Yeah.
toxic pressure of just having to perform. And I've never I never enjoyed beating my friends. You want to see your friends doing well. You want to see, like, you want to cheer your friends on, right? You want your friends to cheer you on. But I remember one day it dawned on me, like I was at the Coosa rodeo, and I shouldn't have won. Andre Spino Smith should have won, but like if you went by the judging rules, but they said, hey, we're throwing the rule book out. We just want dynamic rides and the coolest thing. And I remember I hit like 6 loops in a row in a vertigo, just bam, 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 and I just kept hitting them and kept hitting them, and that it was one trick, and the judges liked it, and I ended up winning. But I remember going out there, and I thinking to myself, like I Andre should win this event. Like I don't want to, and I was like, you know what? I deserve to win. Like I'm gonna win this time. I'm gonna beat somebody. And I went out there and started throwing. But that kind of pressure to perform and being jealous of your friends when they get
Yep.
a cover shot or something like
Yep.
that, and now you're like, oh my god, now I got to get a cover. It's a weird type of a weird type of motivation that kept us going back then. But it when you can just I think that day at Rock Island, like I turned all that stuff off and I was just
Mm.
having fun, right? So
Yeah.
that if I've had to say the bad times are when I let that stuff get to me.
Okay.
I let those times of the pressure to perform, the pressure to go out and do these photo shoots and these video shoots. Um, you mentioned earlier about the GoPro days, right? Like we're in the GoPro days. Anybody can be in a video. Man, it used to be like you're about to run the scariest rapid of your life, like one of the biggest drops you've ever run, and you got to wait for the light. You got to wait for the cloud to go away so
Right.
the 8 millimeter guy can be ready. And like so you're sitting there waiting for the cloud to go, and you're sitting above this massive drop, and you're just waiting like, man, I would sure like to run this thing while my nerves are ready
And
for
then
it.
not only that, you run it and you clean it, and they're like, "Hey, can you go run that again?"
Yeah, can you do that again?
No.
Like, yeah, no, that's it. That's all you get out
Yeah.
of me.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I remember there was one day, probably the scariest thing I ever had happen to me, and I tell this story. I teach a firefighting class nationwide across the United States and Canada called Fireground Survival, and it's based the entire class is based around how do you keep your mental your mindset into a survival mode and calm and when everything around you is going crazy, like when you're in a life or death situation, you've had a roof come down on you or something like that, you're burning, like how do you keep yourself calm enough to do everything you need to do to get out of that situation alive, right? And a lot of that experience that I have goes back to kayaking.
Yeah.
And probably the scariest event that ever happened to me, like in that life or this life, right, was we were on Big Timber in Montana and filming with the Nurpu guys over there with TGR, and there's a series of drops at the end. They've since been run, but there's a series of drops at the end that nobody had run all together at once. And there's the lead in drop that nobody had run at all yet. And I was like, I'm running that. I see the line. Like I'm doing it. Like I can see the line, and it feels right. And when you see it, you're 100% confident you're going to hit it. Like I can visualize myself. I know exactly where I'm going to go over here. I'm going to boof onto this shelf, and it reminded me kind of like Stairway to Heaven on the bear. But like you're gonna fall off this drop and land on this flowing shelf, and it might hurt for a second, but like I'll know the angle I hit it at and be right, and then it just leads into this series of slides culminating in this big drop at the end. I was like, I'm running it. I'm running it today, and then upstream of that, we were running through these things, and I was in a CFS prototype. And when I say prototype, it was one of the ones that we changed, right? Because it didn't have a bow rocker. And I remember peeling out into this nothing rapid, and my bow went through the wave instead of on top of it. So I just pitoned into the wall, and it shot me into an undercut rock on the undercut wall on the left side. And I remember my paddle was jammed against the bottom of the river in the top of the undercut. So it was like right across my body. And I was wedged in, and my boat just kept shifting further and further and further down. And I was having to blow water out of the way to take a breath, like a and then like the water line was sitting like right there. This is where the
My
water line
gosh.
was. And I could look up, I could see my ex-wife who was sitting on the eddy of the other side. She was screaming like, we need help, we need help. And then Kelfrey said when he came over the top and he looked over the top of the rock, all I could see was the top of my helmet sticking up out of there. And I was trying
Wow.
to break, and this is a plug for Werner, because I was trying to break that paddle with all my might, because that's what was wedging me. And it wouldn't break. Like I was trying to break that paddle and it wouldn't break. And so I started hitting it at the top. I hit it from the top and knocked it out, and I flipped over, rolled up right before this next drop, and went off. And I pulled into that eddy at the bottom, and I cried. Like I was just like
I imagine.
sobbing, like
Yeah.
holy crap. And then we get down to that rapid later, and they're like, "Man, you gonna run it?" I was like, "Hell no, I'm
Hell
not gonna
no.
run this drop." Like,
I'm
just
good.
I'm not running this drop. But I tell that story because when I teach that class, because part of the shame, like in the whole in firefighting, is people are afraid to call a mayday because they're afraid of shame. They're afraid of getting made fun of. Like, oh yeah, you had to call a mayday because you were lost. Like you shouldn't have been lost, or whatever. So when I was wedged under that undercut rock, the thing I was thinking about was I'm gonna have to drink a booty. Like if I come out of this boat, I'm gonna have to pour my beer in my booty and drink out of that booty, and they're gonna put it on film, and I don't want that on film. And that was my first thoughts, and I was like, and then my boat started shifting down. And then my next thoughts became, I'm gonna die,
Yeah.
So, but that first thought of like, man, I'm gonna drink this booty. Like, and that's what's led to me. The fear of drinking that booty is what led to me into this life or death situation. It makes you reevaluate some things. I forgot where that what we were talking about that got me into that tangent, but it is those were good days, and that like to to use that trip uh, as like a bad trip, like it also the week before that, or the 2 days before that, because we were there all week. It was an epic trip. I remember me and Kale Freeze were standing there at this drop, and we were watching Dave Persolia come through, and it was a technical little drop, nothing heinous or dangerous, but it was a bigger but technical drop, led into little slot moves, and then you drop off like this 10-foot drop, no big deal. And Dave came down, and he pitoned the first drop, and he turned and he pitoned the next drop, and he turned and he pitoned, and then he went off the drop nose first and pitoned up. Like he pitoned like 4 times. So then we all have bad lines, right? Everybody have bad lines,
Yeah.
but everybody's like, "Oh my God, is he okay?" Meanwhile, me and Kale are like trying to hold each other up because we're laughing so hard, because like laughing at your friends having bad lines, but they're okay. It's like like just that time on the water with your friends and just uncontrollably laughing at each other.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
That is good stuff. So tell us now about current, and kind of you're a firefighter for people who don't know, but you've taken your skills with whitewater and rescue, and of course, like years now of skills as a firefighter, and have kind of coupled them together and are doing a lot of really neat things with swiftwater rescue. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so our department started a swiftwater team recently. Chris Warren's kind of leading it up. He was my manager at Sunburst Outfitters when I used to guide rafts, and now he's the battalion chief at the Chattanooga Fire Department. So we've known Chris for a long, long, long time. But he sort of headed it up. He is still he bought a house over by the Ocoee, or bought some land over there, closer to the Hiwassee actually. But so he's still in the water a lot, and so he's kind of heading it up. But we the whole team is made up of former raft guides and former kayakers. Got a few people on there that really don't have a lot of experience, but the majority of us have tons of whitewater experience. And it's like I was saying earlier, fire-based swiftwater rescues is sometimes scary. Like we see a lot of people that maybe like, oh, they should not be doing what they're doing.
Right.
But I feel like our group is a little bit different. We know whitewater really, really well. There's it's more to it than that. There's a whole realm of that urban swiftwater that really doesn't come into play in whitewater, like hazards like chain link fences and manhole covers, things like that whole kind of thing. A little bit different, but we've it's kind of reintroduced whitewater back into my life, kind of heading up, because we train at the Ocoee. We load the boats up, we go up there, and we train, because it's constant swiftwater that we have access to.
Right.
So we go up there and we swim rapids, and we throw ropes to each other, do that kind of thing, and it being around moving water again, like just realize, like it's made me realize, man, these are the happiest times of my life, is being out on water like that.
Yeah.
The more you're there, like it starts out, you're all dressed up, you're teaching people how to throw ropes, you're teaching people like how to swim rapids and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden somebody misses somebody with a rope, and you see your friend bouncing down this rapid, like they're fine. So that laughing at your friends again thing comes out. You're like, this is what I miss. This
Hmm.
is what I miss. It's kind of gotten whitewater back into my life a little bit, and so I got the dagger rewind, went back up there, started catching eddies again. Paddle on the way I used to paddle, trying to break rapids apart, do attainment moves, not just use it as a fitness thing also,
Yep.
but uh, all the things that whitewater can provide, right? Can provide a good time, can provide great fitness benefits, and then get your mind off the crazy stuff we deal with every day.
So that's a great segue into flow advice. And I want you to think about two different paddlers here. A beginning paddler, what advice would you have for them? And then, very similar to like you and I, like older guys who used to paddle, maybe put the boat up for a while and are now getting back into it. And I say older guys, that's guys or girls.
Yeah, for sure. That is very much a general neutral term in my
Yeah,
my opinion. I have
yeah,
to
yeah.
when I teach
Uh,
classes, I have to
Guys is
I have to throw
everybody.
that out there. Like, look, yeah, please don't take it. And if you do get offended, tell me now, and I will do my best not to. Uh, but so newer paddlers, right? Um, there was something that that was in Tommy's video years ago that plugged into my head, and it seems to it applies to everything. It applies to I use it in kayaking. I use it at work, fighting fire, like all that kind of stuff. And people have asked me, like, do you get scared in a fire? It's like, well, my nerves, like I'm paying attention, obviously. Um, but it's the same for kayaking, right? If you fill your head so full of technique, then there's no room for fear, right? So if you've
Mm,
got a job to do, or I've got to take a left sweep on this side to get around that rock to catch that eddy on my right there and peel back in. And if you're thinking so hard about what you have to do, then you don't think about what's going to go wrong if I don't make it right.
mm,
That would be my advice to a newer paddler. People often say, like when you're skiing trees, you don't look at the trees, you look at the gaps in
right.
between. You look at where you want to go, not what you're afraid of hitting. Because if you look at what you're afraid of hitting, your body
That's where
is
you're
going
gonna
to
go.
go where your eyes go. Yeah, that's so. That would be my advice. Just fill your head full of technique. Don't worry about the consequences necessarily, and just keep your goal and your target in your sights, and go for it. And get on the water a lot.
Yeah.
The more you can spend time on the water, the more you're going to love it. Be realistic about your abilities. And that there's your advice for the older guys too. Be realistic about your abilities, because they're not the same as they used to be.
Yep.
uh, I, a simple roll can pull some muscles where it never used to.
Yep.
So be realistic about your abilities, and especially for somebody who's been away from it for a little while.
Hmm.
It's funny because I used to watch videos, and I would that was my, like, man, I started kayaking in the VHS days, right? So I would wear tapes out, just watching them over and over and over again. And I was so passionate about kayaking at the time, and I would watch those videos, and it got to be where I would see things like, I would never run that. I would never in my life run that. I've got no need to run that. Next thing you
Right.
know, I'm running it without scouting it. Like running the very same rapid that I saw in that video that I said I would never run. I'm running without scouting it, because my abilities,
Right.
you progress like that. But then when you take time off, like in your body, it's not the same body it used to be. You got to be realistic about it. And sometimes you got to pump the brakes just a little bit,
Hmm.
and you end up getting the same enjoyment out of class 3, 4 rivers that you got out of class
Yep.
4, 5 rivers.
Exactly.
Or even class 2 rivers,
Yep.
if that's all you've got, and you can find ways to make them exciting, and little attainment moves, things like that.
Absolutely. Well, are you ready to run some rapids?
Let's do them.
All right. So this is the rapid fire. Give me your Mount Rushmore of these topics. So I'll give you anywhere between 3 to 5 nominees for these. We'll start with your favorite kayak designs of all time.
Oh man, favorite kayak design, like, so.
You can be biased.
I can be by, and I will be, because that's all I
Good.
paddled. Yeah, so the RPM was amazing.
Yep.
You had to tweak it just a little bit. You had to move the seat forward, and you had to raise the volume in the stern just a little bit. For as amazing as a boat that was, it was an overcorrection, right?
Yeah.
So the original transition, which I never got to paddle, but if you ever see the original transition prototypes from the 1993 Ocoee Worlds, like, that was the boat of boats, right?
Yeah.
EJ won the world championship with that. Mark Lyle used it. Like, all these people were using it, and then they made it more user friendly when it hit the market. They added volume to the stern. They beefed everything up, and they made it more of like a river running playboat.
Right.
And then they overcorrected with the RPM. They made the stern too slicey, and then moved the seat back so people could stern squirt. And granted, some people love stern squirting, but for us that wanted to do the other stuff, we had to move the seat forward, add a little volume to the back. It was easy to do, but that boat was amazing. It was 9 feet long, but for some reason we felt like it was super short. But
It
it
did feel
was
short
9 feet.
because now I get in a
It
rewind and
felt
I'm
so.
like this thing feels like a 12-foot boat. But at the time,
Yeah,
yeah, that
yeah.
that RPM felt short for sure.
So that boat was amazing. Gosh, if I had to think about some other manufacturers that were uh, the Easy, man, the Wave Sport Easy. Though that was a hard boat to compete against. Like,
It
those
was.
guys were killing it in that boat. Um, that boat was a really good boat. Uh, it it was, like I said, I forget what we were in at the time. We might have been in a Vertigo when we were competing
No,
against them. Um, Maybe a Medieval.
medieval maybe. Yeah.
Probably, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, Easy was good. As far as creek boats go, I loved the gradient. Like, I
Okay.
really did. I ran some of the hardest stuff I've ever run. Uh, the most clean I ever ran was in that boat.
Okay.
It was heavy. It made you not want to walk stuff. So maybe that's why I ran so much stuff, because I didn't want to carry that heavy thing around. But anyway, I'll give you those three.
Okay. What about your favorite rivers of all time?
Favorite rivers. I'm going to go Foodlafoo was that because it was an experience probably, but it is an amazing river. Like if I could live there and kayak there every day, I don't think I'd ever get sick of it. Like I said, we were down there for a month and I never got tired of running it. Then I haven't been on it in years, and I've heard it's changed with some floods. But I used to love the Coliseja. I
Mm,
love the Coliseja.
okay.
It was, yeah, it was short. I could run no portages, no scouts. We could run it. Obviously, the first time we'd go there, we would kind of take a little bit of time, and we'd get down to the bottom, drive back up to the top, and just do laps on it. And I would run that river like it was super fun. And all the people we paddled with, except for Save a Few, like Jeff West loved it. But everybody else was just like, man, that thing every time you go there someone comes out with a broken boat or a broken body some way shape or form. And yeah, it wasn't very forgiving, but it was super fun.
Mm,
I love Suck Creek here in town. Like I said, I haven't paddled it in quite a bit, but um, we sort of re-pioneered it back in the day. Uh, some folks had run it. Ron Stewart. There was a drowning on it years and years and
mm.
years ago, so people stopped running it, and then we sort of re-pioneered it back in the day, um, and then now people are. I think they had a race on it this last weekend,
Cool.
maybe yesterday. I think it was yesterday, but they do races on it now. But it's the same thing. I got that run down to no scouts, no portages, and it was close to town. It would run long after everything else would run. So
Okay.
as all the stuff in the Chattanooga area kind of dropped off, Suck Creek would still have water. So you could either go to Suck Creek or Little River Canyon. So we would go to Suck Creek just because of convenience and how close it was. But it holds its water for a lot longer. But it does change. It changes a lot, and it's got some road trash, like because it's right there by the road, and the riprap moves around. And then it's got this weird shale bedrock that will crumble, so the rapids move around and change a lot, which
Wow.
makes it pretty dangerous. So if I was going to run it again, I would be looking at absolutely everything on it. Um, but those were kind of some of my tops.
Okay.
The Ottawa River was fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Carburetor might be one of my favorite places in the whole world. Like that was the Ottawa was fantastic. Like uh, I remember when my oldest son was born, and man, I don't know, I should probably be in jail, but putting him between my legs in the kayak when he was like 3 months old, 6 months old, paddling down, and then getting to the top of a rapid. One of us would watch him while the other one played. Then we take shifts like that. But that you can do that on the Ottawa because it's like
Yeah.
lake rapid, lake rapid, lake rapid. It was amazing.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of like places like the Ottawa and Garb, your favorite play spots of all time.
Favorite play spots. Carburetor, right side McCoy's when it's really good. On the Ottawa, it was fantastic. Uh, Man, there's that one. Those two obviously. I love Rock Island.
Hmm.
Two generators, Rock Island, it will beat the crap out of you. But I feel like with the better boats these days, it'd be a lot more forgiving. Rock Island maybe at like 2,400 when it's not the full on two generators. It was epic, just great, just a perfect little hole, super good access. And but there's no beating Hellhole back in its glory days.
Back in the day, yeah.
People don't know, man. People don't know that like that place was amazing back in the day, and I've never seen it like that ever again. Like
And
it's
not
just
only
not the
was
way
it
it used to
so,
be. But
was it so good, I tell people all the time, like if you got to Hellhole the middle afternoon and the lineup of people waiting to get in that thing was 30 or 40 boats deep, and half of which were sponsored, like fully sponsored paddlers who were on the
yeah,
tour,
yeah, best kayakers in the world.
were just hanging out there every day. Yeah.
And this is no lie. Like this is 100% accurate. It was harder to win the Ocoee Rodeo than it
Yep.
was the World Championships.
Thousand
Like that
percent.
is that is a fact.
Fact.
Because you think about all the best kayakers in the world. each country gets to send 4 people, at the time, and you had all of those people that don't get to go to the World Championships could win the Ocoee Rodeo. You might have gotten sixth or seventh in the team trials. You didn't get to go to the Worlds, but you could win the Ocoee Rodeo, because you could compete there openly. It was harder to win that event than
And
the World
places like the
Championships, in my
Ocoee and the
opinion.
Nantahala, and I know like the Pacific Northwest is like this now, but the local paddler who had no desire or maybe couldn't financially or whatever to travel to compete, they were going to show up for their local rodeo, and at that spot, they were just as good as you or me or anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely, and, and
And
and that was one thing
there's
early on.
15 of
Again,
those dudes.
15, yeah,
Yeah, there
easy.
was like there was
Like,
like
so
tons of those
I I
dudes.
I had argued that because they were, at the time it was like expert class, right? But then they developed this pro division, and in order to enter the pro division, you had to qualify for the pro division and all that. And I remember thinking, man, you are gonna alienate some people
Hmm.
that could beat us when we show up to these events. Those people can beat us. They're just as good, but they don't get out there, and they're not committed to rodeo tour for the entire season. And I was sort of against that. I think it kind of stifled the sport in ways, but in other ways, it propelled the sport. So the benefits probably outweighed the
Hmm.
bad parts of that format style. But yeah, you did leave some people in the dark on it, because there were some really good local paddlers that could have destroyed all of us when we came in.
I came onto the tour right when that rule started, so I was one of the first people to move through the expert class and like
Yeah,
get the points needed to then be on the pro tour. Like my first year, like pro tour was 2001, so I had to go through like the
yeah,
like that expert. I was like, oh great, now you all start this rule right whenever I'm going to start competing full time. But it made me
yeah.
better
You're
probably,
like,
because I probably would have been content my first year finishing top 15, top 20 at a lot of pro events.
yep,
It made me like, oh, I've got to get on
yeah,
these podiums, and so it made me really focus.
yeah. It Making finals was hard in a pro
Yeah,
event. It really
absolutely.
was. Yeah, I play roller hockey now, and that's sort of, I was in the gold league for a long time, and I was pretty awful in the gold league, but I was just on the cusp of, like, I could still hang with everybody out there. But then I just got older, and they bumped me down to the silver league, and I was like, man, I'm pretty good down here, and then now I'm probably gonna get bumped to bronze pretty soon.
Well,
But yeah,
Keith,
so
now
the expert.
they have masters level for people over 40 in freestyle events.
I
Any desire to
I
try it
know.
again?
You know what? Possibly. Like, what I
Yes.
remember. I remember. Gosh, who did I see? I uh, I saw somebody. I saw somebody at the Ocoee, and they're like, "Man, World Championships are going to be at the Nantahala next year." This was obviously years ago, a couple of years ago, and I was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Man, maybe I should give it a shot." But yeah, but maybe, yeah, I could pull out, me and EJ could go at
Yeah.
it.
I'm loosely making some plans. I'm going to attend the Nantahala. They've now started the Southeast Freestyle Tour again, so I'm going to go to the Nantahala event and enter the Masters class and see how it goes. And obviously, I'm not competing against the senior the regular men, but the 40 and up crowd. Like I'm going to throw my hat back in there
Yeah,
and see how things go. So you got to
you
join
know
me.
what? I'm gonna look into it. I
Okay,
will.
good,
I will. I
good.
will look
All
into
right,
it.
all right. I'm hoping to buy a used Jitsu here soon to use for that. So.
I'll bring the FX out.
Oh, do it. Yes, do it.
Yeah,
All right, couple more here for our run in the rapids. Favorite countries to paddle in?
Chile, Chile
Yeah.
and New Zealand. Uh,
Yeah.
Mainly because of the countries themselves, not
Hmm.
necessarily the water. There's good water all over the world, right? Um, but New Zealand was amazing. Like, anybody that's seen Lord of the Rings knows just how amazing New Zealand is. But then the people there are amazing. Uh, we bought a. I mean, where do you go? where do you go on an international trip where you buy a car while you're there? You know,
Right.
like you, like we bought a car, we rented a house, and we stayed there for a month. I mean, it was amazing. And then Chile was unlike anything I've ever experienced. You know, the mountains, the people, like it like I said, the kayaking is the kayaking, and there's good kayaking all over the world. But those meeting those people and those places, and seeing that stuff is amazing. I mean, I got the Trace Molnas tattooed on my arm,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
so that's yeah, that's how much that trip made an impression on me.
That's cool. Kayakers of all time.
Oh gosh, man, I always looked up to Mark Lyle, like always looked up to that guy. He's a good dude. Like
Hmm.
that's one thing's for sure. Um, he was real down to earth, real easy, like saved my life more than once. Um, Good person to paddle with, like just a really good person to paddle with. Would always turn around and look, like you know, like that's one thing. And I paddled with a bunch of people that, like people that I consider my friends, you know, and you'll run through rapids and they never turn their head around, you know,
Mm.
and look to see how you're doing back there, if you're okay. And like when and the group that we paddled with Mark, it like we that was something we would always turn around and look, always make sure everybody made it through. You could always rely on him for that. Just a great person to paddle with. Great person. My skills got so good because I remember when I did win the Ocoee Rodeo. Uh, it is He got like fourth, I think, or something like that, and I was like, I think it's the only time I ever beat Mark. Like like he was always, if I got second, he got first. If I got third, he got first. You know, like that was the only time I ever beat him.
Mm.
And I think it's the last event he ever did. And I'm like, I sent you into retirement. Uh, but so Mark was fantastic. EJ was super good. It still is super good. Uh, I would love to paddle with some of the folks that are out there now, just killing it. Um, but you know, I'm not where I was, but man, some of those some of the Canadians like Tyler Curtis,
Yeah.
Brendan Mark, like those guys, like there's Ken Whiting, like great dudes. Uh, Brad Sutton, like all of those guys, fantastic kayakers. Um, Man, we talked earlier about like seeing people be in the lineup with people that like that you saw in videos and just idolized, you know. But Dan Gavir, like
Yeah.
my God, like what, like Paddle Quest, like that
Yeah.
or Kavu Day, like
You're right.
like man, that Kavu Day changed kayaking, in my opinion.
Totally.
Like
Yes.
like it completely changed everything, and it was like it I remember sitting the very first time I met him, um, was at the Ottawa River for pre worlds, and I remember Dan Gavir, like, holy cow! And I went out to eat with Dan Gavir, and I was like, I'm eating dinner with Dan Gavir.
See, now you know how I felt when I
It's
met you.
crazy. Yeah, I don't. You shouldn't have felt that way. There's no reason to feel
Well, Dan probably thought the same thing that
that
you felt that way about him. So,
way. Oh, man. Yeah, probably. But yeah, like and you know, obviously, I'm still Facebook friends with all these people, and I see them occasionally, and it's really cool to see people still out there doing it.
yeah.
You know, Dan's obviously doing stand up paddleboarding stuff like that now. You know, Anna, I called her Anna, and she'll say her name's Anna. Anna Levesque, like
Mhm.
still just doing good stuff
Yeah.
in the industry. Um, one of the firefighters that I work with. She went on on a trip to Nantahala and did she started posting stuff on Facebook, and it was one of Anna's events,
So
and I
cool.
was like, you met? How do you know Anna? And she went to one of Anna's events and absolutely loved it, and I was like, man, it's really cool to see people still out there just doing good stuff. You know, it's
Absolutely.
kind of. feel jealous of them a little bit, but
Oh, that's we each have our own adventure and our own. You're gonna. I love that you're getting back into it, and I'm looking forward to you and I paddling again this summer, maybe.
yeah, for sure, for sure,
Well,
definitely.
last question here is final flow. You've got one last day in the kayak, but the river gods are granting you can be on any river you want, any boat you want, and you get to pick your crew.
Honestly, what I would do now, uh, and it would take some manipulation of the rules just a little bit, uh, but I would probably have my kids
Mm,
be the level that we were back then. Like, my kids really haven't gotten too much into kayaking, but if I could take my wife, my kids, their significant others, and go down to the Foodle and all of us paddle like that, like, because that's a world that it's a world that they were never a part of, really. So they don't
sure.
really know. They don't. We've been rafting and stuff like that, but
Right.
they didn't see that part of my life in that world. But I would love to take them out and expose them to that on that level. Not just a day on the Hawassi or a day on the Ocoee, but that type of kayaking.
Obviously, I've asked that question to a lot of people, and I've never thought about because my daughter's the same way. She likes to go down the Nantahala and raft, but I never thought like, oh, if I could magically give her the skills that I had back then and take her down the Fuda,
Yeah,
that would be pretty epic. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, pretty amazing.
Well, Keith, man, it has been so great catching up. We've been planning on doing this for a while. You were a big part of my kayaking career. I enjoyed our time traveling, competing, paddling together, and I want to reconnect on the water with you again soon. But thanks again for being on B Flow Sessions.
For sure, brother. Like I said, man, I was a hesitant to get back with you because I was like, man, I'm kind of so far removed from it a little bit. But like you said, it coming back.
Yeah,
Like, maybe not the same way, but it's really good to get back out there and get back on the water and get back in touch with that side of my life that I kind of didn't see for a long, long time. But man, it's been fun. I'm glad you finally made me do it.
twisted your arm. I got you. All right, buddy. Well, again, let's
Yeah,
stay in
you got me,
touch,
bro.
and thanks again for being on B Flow Sessions.
Right on, brother. See you, man. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of B Flow Sessions, where we explore how paddlers find their flow on the water and in life. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, leave a rating, or share it with a friend. It truly helps us grow the community. And a huge thank you to Pucon Kayak Retreat for sponsoring today's episode. If you're ready for a world-class Chilean whitewater adventure, email me at bflowkayak@gmail.com and I'll help you get dialed in. Until next time, keep finding your flow.